Hey everyone, it's Becca. This is First Line Frenzy Live. Today we are welcoming special guest host Jennifer Udden. She is a former literary agent and current freelance editor and author whose opinions are always spot on and who will be joining us here really shortly. So we have about 2 or 3 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome in everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for being here. It's a gorgeous, sunny Friday here in Massachusetts, and I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining. We had an absolute disaster in the house this morning. We found out that our downstairs powder room is just like has a leaky toilet, and now the floor needs to be ripped up, and like it's gonna be a whole disaster zone here next week. And so I'm just trying to like drop in and forget any of that exists and just be here with you and just maybe like forget that I am a homeowner, which is not always all it's cracked out to be. Hi Sarah. Hi Betty. It's great to see both of you here. Let me see if Jen is around. I have about a dozen lines. There we go. Up for today, and we will be getting to all of those. And Jen has an editing special that she's going to tell you about. Oh, there she is. Hey.
Well, theoretically, here I am.
You're here. You're totally here.
Hi.
Hi. Long time no see.
I was gonna say it's been 5 whole minutes.
Yeah.
Turn the volume up a little bit.
There we go. I gotta like reposition myself. We're just giving everybody a couple minutes to drop in. I just finished reading your newsletter for the morning.
Oh, exciting. My little rambling about random internet scandals that no one really cares about.
Well, I didn't know about any of them. So I had to go. You had told me about the Try Guys shenanigans, but then I didn't know anything about this author, this Light Spark author. What's her
Lightlark.
name?
Yeah, I mean,
Lightlark.
So I'm still kind of doing my research because I feel like it's a larger conversation. Basically, she was sort of a TikTok girly who was like cute and young, and she had sort of tried being an influencer before. And she started doing all these TikToks about this book and like doing these like sort of very Pinterest boardy kind of like, oh, this is what a story is, and like this is what you can expect. And then it came out and it wasn't very good. And so people were pissed, but it was like only a small segment of like BookTok that was pissed because it's still selling pretty well. But like, I just feel like that's like a whole other conversation about like TikTok and BookTok and that kind of like, you know.
It's unfortunate.
When books go viral,
like,
is it like,
yeah,
you know.
Like why do they go viral? And
yeah.
I was just reading an email from someone else about a sort of unrelated topic, but that person was mentioning that like at this point, even like the in-house PR people are like, if you're not going viral on BookTok, we can't help you. And
I mean, I always think that kind of thing is a little overblown. Like, there's always been some social media that they're like, without this, we can't help you. So I take that with a very large grain of salt. They're like, I mean, obviously it would be great. Obviously that would be great if a book went viral on BookTok, but like, I don't know.
There are other ways to skin the cat.
Exactly, yeah. And also like things, you know, a lot of times the things that do blow up on BookTok, it's like totally organic. Like, I think about the madness around Ice Planet Barbarians from, you know, 2020. Like, that was totally organic. Someone was like, I found this bonkers book, and someone was like, I have to read it. And it turned into like, it was like a lot of people like sort of like, ironically maybe, but like, you know, totally organically and genuinely loving these incredibly strange books.
Yeah, I think a lot of people picked up the first one ironically and then couldn't put them down.
I've read like 7 of them.
I haven't read them yet. I think I'm waiting for like a blizzard. Like I'm waiting to really need an escape.
Also, like, I don't feel like enough people warned me about these sort of very graphic, like, sexual assault that, like, starts the book. Like, starts the series.
No, not from, like, I've not heard anything about that, actually.
It's because it's, like, it's sort of the catalyst for them getting, like, abducted off of Earth is, like, these evil aliens, and then they crash land on this other planet with different aliens. They're the sexy ones.
Sexy aliens?
But, I mean, A Certain Hunger, which is one of my books, has gone sort of semi-TikTok viral, and it's really...
Oh, really?
Yeah, because...
I love that book. I really enjoyed A Certain Hunger. And it was... I am, like, in many ways not the target audience because I am a squeamish and, like, a little historical romance loving fairy, but I couldn't put it down. It is like compulsively readable and so good.
Well, and readers seized on that because it was sort of the feral girl summer thing where, you know, unhinged women were sort of briefly, you know, and then they still are. So, you know, it got a certain amount of traction on BookTok, and then people started thinking of it in the same vein as like a Tessa Moshfegh and,
yes,
you know, books like that. So, you know, sometimes BookTok can be good.
BookTok gets it right. We have a great segue comment from Henry, who says, "Have fun, everyone. Thank you, Rebecca and Jennifer, for this educational and incredibly inspiring content. You are the best." Thank you. I definitely think Jen is the best. It was her birthday this week, so this is a celebratory First Line Frenzy, which has absolutely no effect on the content of this program, but just, you know, if you have a birthday hat handy and you can put it on, you should do so.
Unfortunately, I do not.
Oh, maybe everyone else can find one. Okay, so the way this works, very high tech. Our first joint First Line Frenzy, when I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to put lines up on the screen. Do you remember that? It was
you were like holding up your laptop, right?
Yes, still one of my most watched YouTube videos. People are just like, we don't care, we're here for it, and I like captioned it by hand, which was like the worst experience of my life. Anyway, don't even ask. So I have 12 lines lined up for us, and after about 6 lines, we're going to stop, and you're going to tell everybody about the amazing opportunity to work with you that they can have for a song, and that's a query package, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little while, but we're going to start with a variety of genres. You already know the First Line Frenzy rules, but if for some wild reason this is someone's first line watching, I will tell you that these lines are kept anonymous. They're sent to me, and I don't really look at like who sent them, or like I don't have any context other than the genre and the line itself, and we are looking to see how effective these first lines are at drawing in our attention and how that effort might be improved. So I am going to do this awkward camera flip. Bloop. There's my house, and here's my computer. Okay, I'm going to drag this forward and make it bigger. I promise you'll be able to see it. Hold on. Okay. Is this, whoa, okay. There's like a glare, everything's happening. Hold on, there we go, okay.
Well, my phone is on a tripod on top of 2 plastic containers full of winter clothes, so we're both winning in our own ways.
This is a terrible glare, oh boy. Okay, how can I adjust this a little bit? There we go. Nope, I'm gonna make it less shaky and more clear. Okay, you know, this might just have to do. I will read these aloud so that you can hear them and hopefully see them a little bit. Sorry, everyone, for the glare. That's my couch behind me. Okay, whatever. All right. This first one is from a YA fantasy, and it reads, "The strongest visions always came to her on the longest night of the year."
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it, too. I was like, yeah, all right.
I don't hate it. It feels like it needs something else.
It does. And I'm wondering if it's a more specific vision.
A more specific vision or a detail about the nights, other than that they're long.
Yes.
Like, because I feel like we could get a little bit more, you know, world building context or something from this. Like,
yeah.
Is this a world where the longest nights are the coldest ones or the hottest ones? Like, what is it about, you know?
Yeah, and it just says longest night. So it was like, if it's the solstice, I guess maybe say that, or like, I agree. There's something, it feels a little thin, right?
Yeah.
It just feels like a little on the thin side. But at
generic.
the same time, it's not, it feels generic. I'm appreciative that it's not like clogged up with weird world building details. But at the same time, it doesn't do anything to capture my interest. And so I was thinking maybe something like, what does the strongest visions actually mean? Like, does that mean the most visceral or the most vivid or the most complete? So like, maybe it's also that modifier is just not quite pulling its weight.
Yeah, because I think that the impulse is to err on the shorter side, which I think is usually a good impulse, because you don't want to have like a really long ass sentence where people feel like they're getting lost.
100%.
But I think for something like this, where it reads a little bit more generic, and it is a YA fantasy, like you could add a little bit more in there.
Yeah, I agree. So it's a little thin for me. I'd love to see that like chunked up a little bit.
Chunk it.
Okay, chunk it. Okay, number 194 is an adult fantasy. Uchiyama Kameyo's life had been sold away long before she was born. Now, I chose this for like a specific reason, and I want to see if you'll kind of like know why I chose it.
I kind of like it. I kind of like it. It makes me want to know more. It makes me want to know who did the selling, who did the buying.
Yeah.
Um,
How do you feel? So, like, I guess my question for you is, how do you feel about like the world building weight being carried by this character name?
um, I don't hate it. I mean, I think it's, again, we're doing this without context, so it's really hard to, in the wild, this would have been contextualized with like the blurb on the back of the book and
Yes.
probably a little bit more information and a cover. So I think that, if I had all of those pieces, this probably wouldn't be off-putting to me. I do wish, this is, I think, similar to the last one. I wish we had, it was a little longer. Like, I almost wish that this was part one of a sentence.
Yeah,
And
with
then we had
semicolon.
yeah, Uchiyama Kameyo's life had been sold away long before she was born, semicolon. That was why, and then something about like, and then some other thing that gives us a little bit more context about her, her world and, herself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe like the now, right? Like this
Yeah.
positions us. I don't know how old she is now, or like whether or not the selling has been complete, or yeah, I think there's just like I definitely want to know more, and that's a positive. I think there's something to be said about opening with like a slavery and human enslavement and human trafficking. Like that's a very loaded first sentence for a lot of readers.
Yeah.
And I think a little extra context might not make it more palatable, right? Like we're not here to make any kind of enslavement more palatable, but I think giving us something that indicates what kind of fantasy world we're in would be really helpful here.
Yeah, I mean, and even if we're talking about some kind of like, life debt or like, is this kind of like an indentured servitude situation, or is this like a full on like, slavery situation? So
yes,
I think that would also be helpful to know. But
yeah. So again, so our first two lines need a little bit more meat on the bone. Let's see who's next.
Oh, this too much meat.
A lot of meat. We got the meat sweats. Okay. Number 195, an adult general commercial. There were a few things Victor acknowledged knowing. One of them was everything required a beginning, the same way as everything required an ending. I will bet you a gajillion dollars that the author of this line really likes Frederick Bachman.
I don't know who that is.
He wrote Anxious People and The Winners that just came out. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. There you are.
Can you hear me?
I'm back. Yeah, I lost you for a second there. But okay. So
no, that was my fault. In an effort to like make, spend less time on my phone, I put like time limits. So my phone's like, you spent enough time. And I'm like, no, I haven't.
Let me back. Okay. So anyway, I think there's something, it's a little cute for me. It's like a little twee.
It's a little cute, and it also like breaks its own rules. So a few things. So that's a few is 3.
3 or more. Yep.
One of them. Yeah. So one of them was everything required a beginning. The next thing should be like
everything required an ending.
No, the next thing should be like the second was that everything required an end.
Yeah.
Or is 100%. This one of the things, and there are 2? Is this 2-part clause one of the things, or is this 2 of the things, and we're getting a third? Does that make sense?
100% agree with you. Yes, it does. And I feel similarly that it sets up an expectation for a few things, which again, 3. I think is 4 several, or is a few like 3 to 5? I always thought of a few as 3.
I always thought of a few as 3, but I think regardless, like if you start out with a number like 1, like setting aside a few, if one of them was, then the next clause should be, you should continue. It's like saying, first of all, B of all, Roman numeral I of all. Like it's switching up your numbering in the same list.
I agree. Yeah. So this is a little confusing for me. I also acknowledged knowing is extremely awkward.
Yeah.
right?
Just,
Victor acknowledged that all things required a beginning, just as everything required an ending. Would be way more effective.
Someone pointed out that acknowledged knowing is also
redundant. Yeah, absolutely,
Thanks,
Lauren. As usual, you are correct.
But also, I mean, this is also an extremely sort of passive sentence overall. There's no real emotion there. So you could even say something like, there are a few things Victor knew for sure, even if he didn't know anything else. And that creates a sense of like, okay, maybe he's a little...
That would feel very YA to me.
Oh, well, yeah, but...
Yeah.
We're doing best with what we have.
I mean, it's not our job to rewrite the line. I think ultimately it's also like feels like a generalization or like the beginnings of a cliche, and all of that kind of irritates me. I'm not really into that. So I just think get to the point is my like big advice here. There has to be like, I don't know, be really specific. I would love to know a specific thing that needs a beginning or needs an ending. Like, where in this spectrum of things that happen are we? And maybe by engaging with those details a little bit, we might get more engaged.
This is the wherever you're going, there you are.
There you are. Yeah, it aspires to a Buddhist kind of Zen, and that's okay. Let me see. This is an adult thriller suspense. I like to do these with a buddy because sometimes they scare me. The car raced along the desert highway as if the devil himself was chasing it. And for the car's occupants, that wasn't too far from the truth.
Not bad.
Yeah, I like this one. So there's an it will be interesting to my like fellow grammar nerds and to no one else. So in English, was changes to were. Usually we say when if is stated or implied, but actually was changes to were when we engage the conditional tense and the condition we've named is unlikely to occur, which is like a stupid number of rules to follow to understand.
I was going to say, I lost you at like the first clause in that.
I know, I'm sorry. What it means is when I say, if such a thing happens, it was or were, right? Like when I have an if and a were. So the question that really what this comes down to is, if you believe the devil himself could realistically chase someone, then we keep was. But if you think the devil is a figment who could do no chasing whatsoever, then you would change was to were. And
well, I think
sounds crazy. I know that.
I think you might be overthinking this just a scotch. For me, the only thing that I don't love about this car is the car's occupants. Like, the car is racing, but who's driving the car? Like, it's very free of characters. Like,
yes,
the car raced along.
The car is really kind of doing its own thing.
Like, is this a Christine situation where like the car is the character or haunted in some way?
I don't think so.
I mean, that's rather than get into the sort of metaphysics of was and were, I think that would be my feedback, is that
I usually go straight to grammatical metaphysics when I can.
It's one of the things I love about you, but but yeah, for me, it's this isn't a very embodied first sentence. I'm not really sure whose point of view this is going to be from, or who's going to be sort of our main character in this, because all I'm getting is the car and the devil and the desert, which is like evocative to a certain extent, but it doesn't really get me any closer to the story.
That is very true. Okay, well, you do story stuff and I will do grammar metaphysics, and between the two of us, we will be a whole editor. Okay, what number was that? That was like our third or fourth one. Okay, bloop, bloop, bloop. This is an adult mystery. Okay, my cell phone this is a line. Okay, I also chose this one for a reason. My cell phone played a Sugar Plum Fairy ringtone as I patted down the Hispanic drug dealer.
No, drug seller.
Drug seller. Sorry, drug seller. I'm sorry. I was blinded by my
I mean, I super don't like this. First of all, this has very, how do you do, fellow kids? Like, I have heard that they sell drugs on the street. What do you call that person? A drug seller, a drug vendor, if you will, Like I have heard about crime from the stories, like, but I have never actually consumed any crime media. A, setting aside the racism, B, which, we're not setting aside the racism. Why is the drug dealer Hispanic? Why'd you gotta, why did you go to that? Huh?
Literally, it's so many other ways to describe a human that have nothing to do with like a very vague and possibly inaccurate. Like, did you talk to this person about their actual origins before just like labeling them Hispanic? Because that's like a specific heritage from a specific part of the world. And I just, oy, I think, who
Also,
summed it up
I'm sorry,
here?
if Sugar Plum Fairy is your ringtone and it is not Christmas, you're a psychopath.
I just think Alana really summed it up best when she commented, oof. And Alana, I agree so hard. So this is a big no for me. You have to find other ways to talk about people that don't involve assumptions about their race or heritage.
And also, you know, going for the, you know, the Hispanic person as a drug dealer is like the most stereotypical, harmful
Yeah,
stereotype that there is. It's
Yeah.
a terrible, harmful cliche, and I want it gone from like the lexicon.
Was your Jewish doctor on the phone when you picked up?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's really
Woof.
bad. Yeah, it's a big woof. We're gonna move on from this, guys. Please don't do this anymore. Thanks. XOXO. Number 198 from this adult general commercial submission. As with every Monday, I was late, except this was Tuesday. How could I have missed a day? Jen, you want to take that?
What's the punctuation after Tuesday? Is
Yeah,
that a hyphen?
sorry. That looks like a hyphen, which obviously I'm going to change now to an M dash.
Yeah.
Guys, an M dash is created by doing a double dash and then like type any letter and press space, and it should automatically in most Word native settings click over. It's an annoying way to make the mark, but it is the only way to do it that I know about. And you notice it does not have space around either side.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't love this for several reasons. First, it feels very generic, even as it gives us a lot of information, but none of this information really means anything. So first of all, if you're late every Monday, you know why you're late. So even if it's Tuesday, you know why you're late. Like, this doesn't really make any sense. And like, how could I have missed a day? Is that the thing? Like, I don't know. I don't like it.
It's a lot of words that don't add up to a meaning. And I think that's what strikes me about it. Also, this is a really just like not a piece of sort of like editorial opinion I would bring to my work, but which as a reader, I would feel like lateness really bothers me. And so like, I am instantly like disinclined to like this character. If you're late every single Monday, you are just disorganized and disrespectful. And like, you don't even know what day of the week it is. Like, why is it important for us to know that you're late every Monday if it's Tuesday? It's all very confusing.
Someone just said it's empty to me, and I think that's a really
XX Nova nails it with it's empty. And like, also this is the kind of line that makes me worry that the rest of the book is just like an extended journal entry. You know, like it just feels very listless, and as if it has no propulsion or no like sort of center place around which the rest of the sentence spins. And for that reason, I just worry about the meaning making and the rest of.
Well, and to me, you know, I know we're supposed to resist the impulse to rewrite the lines, but you know,
lean in, rewrite it, baby.
You know, if I were writing a story about someone who every Monday they knew they were going to be a little bit late, I would start with like, you know, I tried to build, you know, something like a personal kind of like, you know, acknowledgement of that. Like I try to build my life around this. And then and someone just pointed out, Ann Kay said, I was thinking that they had some sort of amnesia and had no memory of the Monday, which, and that's interesting because if amnesia is interesting, but why is it being framed around this?
Amnesia is never interesting.
I mean, it's more interesting than being late.
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, on the scale of things that are boring, amnesia ranks, you know, sort of like lower on the list than being late.
Literally, if this line said, I was late to work on Tuesday, not even realizing that I'd had a Monday.
Yeah, that would be better.
You know,
having no memory that Monday had passed or whatever.
Exactly. You know, something that makes it clear up front, that the amnesia is the load-bearing part of the sentence and not the
I don't
lightness.
get big amnesia vibes here. I like don't get big amnesia vibes. I didn't know how to start my book, and so I just like sort of word vomited. That is what I get.
This is the classic, you where do you begin a book? Like, in the beginning, like where you start your day and you wake up and you're late to work.
Hopefully you look in the mirror and describe yourself in detail. I mean, I know that's how I start my day.
Yeah. I woke this morning and my bangs were sticking like vertically up from my head. It was real.
That would be I think
it was a look. It was a Luke.
Okay, it was a Luke. Okay, we're gonna do this one, and then you're gonna talk about your editing special.
Okay.
Let me put this here. Okay. Number 199 from a YA contemporary. My mother once told me that people let go when they don't have something to hold on to. So my issue with this is that if you don't have something to hold on to, then you don't have anything to let go of.
Yeah, and I kind of see what they're going for. Like
I do too.
Oh, hi, Mer. Mer just joined.
Hi, Mer.
Station Eternity out now from Facebooks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is supposed to be something profound about loss, but it just feels generic.
It feels like somebody snorted a bunch of Jandy Nelson novels and then like kind of like threw up, and then this was the line that came out.
Someone was reaching for John Green and fell somewhere around the Hallmark Channel.
Shit, what's that mean?
What does that mean?
The problem is that we can feel its aspiration, and I think that's we can feel how badly it wants to be heavy, and like the best lines like are the ones that really like slay, that really hit hard, right? Like I fell in love the way you fall asleep slowly and then all at once. The reason that's
a banger, man. It's a classic for a reason.
Dude, total banger, because it is so specific and simple, and god damn it, it's true. Like it's so it just really slaps. And so the problem with this is that we can see how hard it's trying to do that, and because of the trying, it has not actually done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so you've all been warned that I'm turning the camera back around. My face will be way too close. Okay. I'm sorry. Good. Okay. There we go. So we have a few more lines. Don't go anywhere. But Jen has an opportunity for you all to work with her for honestly a bargain. So tell the people.
Well, it's so basically I had taken a little hiatus from freelance editing to work on my own writing projects this summer. Becca and I were writing buddies for that. It was really, really fun. We still are writing buddies. But I'm back.
Only one of us is writing right now. And spoiler alert, it is not me.
But so I've opened my Readsy books again. So I'm running 2 specials right now for ways that you can work with me in October. Now through October 10th, which is next Monday, I believe. Yeah. If you are getting ready to start querying, you can get a critique of your query and the first 10 pages, sort of a professional eyeball on your submissions package for $25, which is a steal.
It really is.
And
we don't usually get out of bed for $25.
No. So the details are all in my newsletter, which is A Faster No on Substack, and the links are in my bio on Instagram as well. So you can find it directly there. And the other opportunity that I'm doing, which is for the whole month of October, which is if we end up booking an editing session together on Readsy, on top of the services I already provide, you can have the option to either add a 30-minute like coaching session on top of that, or what was the other thing that I was going to?
I thought it was a query review.
Or a query review. You can pick which one. I'm glad you remember my
Yeah, so let me just hop in here for you. I'm Jen's PR person, and this is if you book like a full manuscript edit or like a substantial partial edit beyond the query 10 pages, right? So that is excluded from this additional opportunity. But if you book a fuller edit with Jen for the month of October, you will get a bonus 30-minute conference or a query review on top of that. And so that's what she meant.
And my editing packages already include a 45-minute debrief session where we can go through the feedback that I give you and you have an opportunity to ask questions. But often those get taken up just sort of asking questions about the manuscript. And I know that people have a lot of questions about the industry and the querying process, and you know, what's the lay of the land like right now? Is Penguin Random House going to buy Simon and Schuster? It's like, well, that's a very long conversation. So that's,
you need those extra 30 minutes.
Exactly. And then if you're fairly confident and you just want to get help on your query in addition to that editorial assessment or developmental edit, you can add that as well. And yeah, so that's the whole month of October, and then the back to school special for queries is through the 10th.
So you can find Jen on Reedsy. You can just Google Jennifer Udden Reedsy, Reedsy, and her page should pop up pretty quickly. Did everything just get much brighter for you, or was that just like my weird phone being obnoxious?
No.
Oh, okay. It's been like so dark on my screen this whole time. I've just been kind of trying to brazen it out and hoping everybody can
the overhead light in this room is also out, so I've got this like very strange, like jury rigged like ring light lighting system.
I think you have, it looks like you're in a movie. Like I've been admiring how like just like soft your makeup, it like just looks really nice.
I'm not even wearing makeup. I found this miracle product that I am now shilling for at every opportunity.
What is it?
The Dr. Jart Tiger color correcting. It's green and it goes on and it looks like you've been airbrushed. It's amazing.
I know all about the Dr. Jart color corrector. I have a big tub of it. My problem is that I'm always like, you should totally use this when you go on the YouTube or whatever, and then I forget. And then I have 2 minutes to get ready, and I slap on mascara and hope for the best. So
you look fabulous, darling. All right.
We're going to get back to lines. We have a few more to go. I have no editing specials ever, and you know where to find me, so here I am. Let me turn this back around. More of my house. It's my picture of birds. Okay, anyway. If you followed me on Instagram during the pandemic, you know that I was just a backyard, like amateur, like backyard bird watcher. And I was like just incredibly invested in the lives of my backyard birds. Okay, moving along. Number 200. Can you believe this is the 200th line I've looked at this year?
Wow.
I know.
Dang.
I know. Have there even been 200 days this year? There have been, but still. Okay. This is adult sci-fi. It's, I think, our only sci-fi of the day. The urgent clangor of the village bell lifted Mir's head above the bean plants, and she shared questioning glances with the other startled children weeding close by.
No. Too much.
Too much.
Do less.
So first of all, this comma I think is a typo, but like I had to put it in because it was there when I got it, but we are going to do you a favor and take it out. There's just so much happening here. There's the sound of the bell. Then there's Mir lifting lifting her head, and then sharing glances. And then there's other people, and then they're all weeding. It's too much.
Well, and also it's passive. Mir doesn't lift her own head. The clangor of the bell lifts it.
Yeah, that's a very powerful clang.
Why share questioning glances when you can just say, look? I see the kind of vibe that they're going for, the sort of pastoral, slightly more, not old-fashioned, but sort of classic feeling, but they're sort of separating us too much from the character. I mean, even when you're in third person, you still the third person has to be sort of a little bit closer to us than this.
Yes, there's too much narrative distance.
Yeah.
And just a lot of information. I think one of the things I always encourage my authors to think about is what do we have to know versus what would you like to tell us, right? And you have to just sort of resist the urge on the things that fall into that second category. At least in a first line, it's got to be sort of like essentials only. And that doesn't mean it's purely informational. It just means that the images or the metaphors, like whatever you bring to the table has to matter, and none of this matters enough, right? The clang of the bell matters, but we don't know why.
And also there's a sort of a contradiction in level of urgency. So there's an urgent clangor, but then there's just a questioning glance.
That's true. Yeah, this is like a very mellow response to an urgent
like if the
clang.
bell, especially if I knew that the bell meant alarm, which presumably in a pastoral setting, the bell means either like it's a feast day or there's something wrong, and I was like looking at someone else, the mood is to freak out. I think like the mood is for action rather than to be like,
yeah,
I say, Ursula, what's that clangor?
Whenever I hear the word clanger, I think of this episode of Bake Off where they made some, like, there's like a,
Oh, the clanger, yeah.
the clanger, remember, where it's like
I
half.
dropped the clanger.
That's the one where
Also,
it's like
I don't think
half of
clanger
it
is a
is an
word.
apple pie. Well, I assumed, I'm like, if there's an extra U, it's probably the British spelling, but I think clanger actually never has a U, even in UK spelling, but I have no authority here, so I have no idea. Okay. Anyway, I was thinking of pastry the whole time, and there's a new Bake Off tonight, and I'm super pumped.
Oh,
Bread
yeah.
Week last week.
It's Mexican week, so be prepared for some nonsense.
Oh, no. Well, during that, what about the woman who made the pizza with the guacamole on it? And I was like,
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I just know it's Mexican
No,
week.
this was from Bread Week. This was last week.
All right.
When they made pizzas.
Maybe I just removed it from my mind because it horrified me.
You probably
so much.
blocked it out. You were like, that doesn't belong on a pizza, hun. Okay. Okay, number 201, an adult fantasy. Luminaire's brilliance shone on the sands of Temec, granting Pa Esri and his horse the ability to see in the night.
I think that this has a similar problem as the last one. It's like doing a little bit much. It's interesting that we had that line earlier where your question was, is the world building of the one name, like, is that sort of doing too much? And I think this is or doing too little. And I think that we have the opposite end of that here. Like, we've got three
proper nouns.
3 proper nouns.
This is like a very common thing in fantasy that I see. And I picked this sort of for that reason. None of these proper nouns have significance because you haven't taught us anything about the world yet. And for that reason, they don't contain meaning, right? They're not carrying meaning right now because we don't know who Pa Esri is, or we don't know what Luminaire is, or where Temec is. Like, we don't know enough about any of these words. And then when you put all 3 of them in one sentence, it makes it really hard to get a foothold in this world.
Well, and then, you think about Luminaire, like, okay, I'm going to take a wild stab and say that that's the moon. Because, like, luminous moon, lunar, like, I don't know.
Okay, but here I'm thinking of Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast. So really, it could be anything. Okay, you keep your Latin. All right, I'll keep my Disney. Why not just say the moon? But also that even then, that's like, this is passive as well, right? Luminaire's brilliance shone on the sands of Temec. Like, I don't know. It's not that Luminaire.
Well, and also granting the ability, like,
it's a lot.
That feels like not quite passive, but like, I would honestly rather this be flipped to, like, what's his face? Poe? P-O-U? Esri?
Poe? I don't know.
Flip it to be like, what does he feel? Does he feel grateful that, like, he's not writing in the dark? Like, I feel like there's more. You could do more with this if you were determined to have these proper nouns. Give us emotional context, if nothing else.
Yeah, I would. This many proper nouns in a sentence, one just makes me tired, and then I stop reading.
Yeah.
It just makes me feel like, I don't know, if you're in such a rush to tell me, like, these words that you've made up, why are you not in as much of a rush to tell me about your conflict or your characters or things that I can connect with, even if this takes place on a made-up planet in the made-up, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to connect to here.
It's the dice rolling. You can hear the dice rolling.
Yes, I can. Everything I know about those kinds of games comes from Stranger Things, so I'm not, like, the best person to make those comparisons, but I get it. It's the fancy dice, you guys. That's what she means. Okay, next line. 202. We have 3 more. Oh, YA thriller suspense, one of my favorite categories, and I have the next Maureen Johnson book on my. Is that what I have? I have the next Stevie Bell book. Is that Maureen?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I have the next one I have the ARC on my Kindle, and I'm really excited to read it. Beatrice sat on the lawn chair with tattered polyester edges in the middle of the bank parking lot.
I mean, I'm intrigued, but I also, this sort of ends.
Yes.
Like,
it's a closed circuit. It doesn't leave any place for us to go with this.
And honestly, like, I would rather take out the bit about the tattered polyester edges,
Yes,
because why
yes.
is she in the middle of a parking lot?
That's what matters, right? I'm just like, is this a protest? Is she waiting for, like, what is happening? And I'm so interested about that. But the detail about the lawn chair is kind of pointless. So you could say Beatrice sat on the tattered lawn chair in the middle of the bank parking lot, and cracked open her like third Diet Coke of the morning, ready to wait as long as she needed to, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know,
This
like
is one of the instances where it needs to be both shorter and longer.
Yeah. Yes. Less of what's here, more of things that we are curious about. But I like already the sort of, there's something kind of like punky about her being in the middle of the parking lot and bringing her own lawn chair. So I'm really interested, but I think the execution is a little bit sideways.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. I'd keep reading because I'm a total simp for YA thrillers. Okay, this is our only middle grade for the day. It's a middle grade fantasy. The morning of the drawing, Cecile Forrester wore her velvet dress, which was reserved for church and special occasions. Until today, she'd only worn it to church. So I want to start off by saying that this semicolon is totally not cool, and I don't even want to look at the second part of the sentence because this is the sentence.
Yeah.
A semicolon should really only be employed when the meaning of sentence one cannot be fully appreciated without consideration for sentence two. And
I think if this was going to be a two-part sentence, there should be an M dash, and then something like, not that she'd ever had any non-church special occasions.
Right. Yeah. Something like that, but like gooder.
Yeah. Hire us, folks. We say things like gooder.
The morning of the drawing. So, I don't know. It's a fantasy world, but there's still church, and I guess church still doesn't mean the same thing that it means here. I don't know.
I'm assuming that they mean sort of like, you know,
some kind of religious experience,
or like contemporary fantasy where it's like in our world, but like she discovers she has magical powers or something, you know.
That's true. I also like how if she only wore her velvet dress for church and special occasions, but she never has special occasions, and it's just her dress for church, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is a lot of words to say. Cecile wore her velvet dress, you know, and I feel like, or, you know, even like this was, I don't know, maybe don't be so coy about the special occasion. It's the drawing. It's the drawing.
Cecile was excited to wear her velvet dress for a reason other than church, which she hated, or
yeah. You know. Or like it felt strange to don the velvet dress she usually only wore in church, but today was, this morning was the drawing, or whatever.
Yeah, we may be overthinking this.
We're probably overbaking this, but I think there are great components here. There's just like too much and also too little.
Yeah.
And get rid of this last part. Obviously doesn't belong here. Okay, I think the next one is our last one for the day. We have absolutely flown through these. I should have queued up more of them.
Well, we can talk about other stuff, you know.
Yeah, we can talk about some other stuff. And we can also take questions. Guys, if you have a question, just start putting it in the comments and I will get to all of them. Probably opening a can of worms there that I might not be able to close, but here we are. In for a penny. Number 204, an adult romance. She sat at her regular table in the corner, sipping her chocolate martini. Little grammar note here. When we change verb tense in the middle of a sentence, we need a comma. So here we have she sat, which is just like, you know, historical past or simple past. And then we have sipping, which is progressive, right? An ing verb, it's ongoing. So because we're changing from one to the other, we need to make sure there's a comma between them. This is like an important rule of thumb that I wish I could tattoo on most of your bodies somewhere so you wouldn't forget.
Yeah.
Henry has asked the critical question, so what? Which indicates he knows about the so what, what's next test. Good job, Henry. Gold star for you. It's true that this doesn't give me a lot to go on. She's sitting, she's sipping, she's chosen a drink I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot kettle prod, and And that's that, this doesn't give us anywhere to go.
I mean, what my question would be, is the emphasis on if you could repeat the emphasis on regular, like at her regular table in the corner of her regular spot, sipping her regular chocolate martini, and then, again, this is where we could use a little bit more, and wishing that literally anything would change,
Yeah.
set up some tension for us, because this is just a description of a woman drinking a terrible drink. Chocolate martinis.
Well, and not only that,
bad.
they're really bad. So the other thing is, like, this breaks sort of two of my rules, which is starting with a stop. You're just opening on someone sitting still, doing nothing. And number two, you're starting at the moment where everything is the same instead of fast forwarding to the moment when something is different. And generally, we don't need to see the humdrum in order to, I'm coming back, everyone, don't be alarmed. We don't need to see, I just like to warn them. We don't need to see like the humdrum to appreciate the change. You just need to show us the change.
Right.
So I would say that is a more valuable use of your like super precious first line real estate.
And it's funny, as we were talking about these, I feel like, we might be giving people the idea that, agents and editors, really kind of dwell on the first line. The thing is that like, we think about them and they're important because we do want to keep going, but we're not, when I'm sitting down to read a manuscript, I'm not usually sitting down and dissecting why the first line does or doesn't work. All of the conversations that we're having happen internally and in about 2 seconds as we're reading. And, it's only afterwards that we're asked to like articulate our feelings that we can sort of, do this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think also like the whole concept behind First Line Frenzy as a community learning project has been like, I remember sort of vaguely the first day I decided to do this. And I think I was an editor for like one of these Twitter writing contests at the time. And I was going through my submissions and one of the, like, we were supposed to sort of like tease stuff out. And so I think I started looking at First Line Frenzy to prove sort of like why I was making the decisions I was making about like who to read forward, like who to keep reading for. And so, yeah, like no editor or agent is sitting there and just stopping after the first line. But if it's a really like incredible first line that just like reaches into your guts and grabs hold, it. Like, and I think that creates this favorable mental environment for readers to keep going.
Right.
And so, there's always, when I do Read See YouTube lives, we get like a lot of viewers, obviously, because it's like a global broadcast and they have a really big audience. And like someone always gets in the comments and it's like, why can't she look at the first paragraph? Or like, why can't we at least have 2 lines? And it's like 2 lines is not going to give you a whole shitload more than 1 line, first of all. And number 2, like that's not the point. The point is to see what we can extract from the smallest possible sample of your writing. And like, look at all of the things that we talked about. We talked about grammar and setting and character and specificity and things like that. And so it's an opportunity to just like, I don't know, make a really small investment in terms of like what you read in order to extract sort of the maximum value in a writing lesson.
Well, it's what I always talk about, the specific and the general, for something to be universally or more sort of widely, for someone to really empathize with something, widely, it has to be specific. It has to be personal and it has to be specific. So I think that it's great. Oh, someone asked if the lives are going to be saved.
A couple questions. Yeah, so I have a couple questions here. The lives are all saved. So some of the lives are on my IG Reels page, but then recently Instagram has been very strange about like posting the lives to IGTV. And for that reason, I started a First Line Frenzy YouTube channel that just has my IG lives on it. So you can head over, just go onto YouTube and search for First Line Frenzy and you will find the channel. And so you can watch them over there. And in the comments, like in the description of those videos, I list all of the sentences that we look at in the video. That's like a nice little bonus. Otherwise, yes, all of my live content is always available either on Instagram or on YouTube. The next question is, oh, well, thank you, Merlin, who says this is the coolest contest. I learned so much from you guys. Yep, less a contest today, more of just us enjoying each other's company with your lines, but I'm really glad you're here. H. Holland says, I understand the need to hook readers with the first sentence, but should you always reveal the conflict that early? I say conflict as soon as humanly possible. Like, if you can get conflict on page 1, that's great.
Well, and I think that, you know, a lot of times what we're talking about like introducing tension into a sentence, it's not necessarily introducing the conflict. It's introducing something that keeps the momentum of the story, that starts the story and then keeps the momentum going. So even if you're not getting the conflict in the first sentence, you should get something that sort of gives the reader that little prod that's like, yeah, like what's going to happen next?
And I think conflict, you know, if we start to think about what conflict is and start defining it, it's when your protagonist's primary desire is in conflict with their environment or like a feature of their environment. So whether that's like political or social or just like a coworker, whatever it is, you want to sort of show that there is a sense of opposition or I don't know, challenge to your protagonist. And I think that is really helpful to get into sentence 1 if you can. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure other people feel differently about it, but I think you can't introduce that too soon, I guess, is the safest way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, I wouldn't go past 10 pages without a conflict.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like you need to, like, get Katniss into the Hunger Games in the first 10 pages, but we need to understand that's what's at stake, right? We know that there's this drawing and this lottery and that, you know, kids die. Yeah. And that she's on the line. Like, in that sense, the conflict is established very early. And I know you're all going to come at me and say, that's a book that starts with a wake up, and don't you always say, don't do that? To which I say, yes, I say, don't do that.
It's the exception to the rule.
Don't ever assume you're the exception. You are probably the rule. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that. Thank you, Becca and Jen. Thanks, Lauren, for being here. Thanks, everybody. Everybody's being so kind. Oh, wait, here we are. Merlin also asked, do you have plans to open Readsy for books in different languages? I am not in charge of Readsy. I am an advisor to the board, but I have nothing to do with the technology. I know that
I believe that you can search. You can search for people who are operative in one particular language.
Yes, I definitely one of the search features.
I don't feel confident in any of the languages that I've studied enough that I could edit in those languages. So
hard same, really hard same.
Oh, here's another question.
Another I'm scrolling through. When using made-up language for a story, do we translate the words on a glossary or at the end of the page? The language is only in dialogue. I wouldn't do it at the bottom of the page like a footnote. I think that's super awkward.
Yeah. I mean,
you go ahead.
I would look at the way, you know, other books handle that. You know, I don't love seeing a lot of sort of, you know, made up languages on the page, but that's like a personal reading preference. One book that I think that handled sort of language and translation really well is Arkady Martine's memory called Empire, because that in a lot of ways is about sort of language and translation. So a lot of the, you know, there is a lot of sort of other languages on the page, but it's always contextualized by like what's happening around it. I think it really, I mean, this is such a kind of cop out, but it sort of depends. It depends.
I think you also have to look at like what value are you bringing to your narrative when you are offering language that no one else understands.
Yeah.
And so reading dialogue, like sounding out words that are essentially meaningless to me in a made up language, it's not, that doesn't add anything to my experience of your work. And so like, I guess this might be a what does your character carry in their purse kind of situation. I often ask my authors to think about what their characters carry on their person, either in their pockets or in their purse or in a wallet or a bag. And most of that is information that your reader never needs to know, but you need to know that about your character. Like, does your character carry a tiny first aid kit or a tiny sewing kit, or is the bottom of their bag just like covered in old M&Ms?
Well, I think in general too, the convention in especially in sci-fi and fantasy is a glossary is more usual than footnotes. So sure. Footnotes also make everything feel academic, and you don't want people to feel.
How often, like show of hands, how often are you going into the glossary to like make your life harder by looking up and stringing together dialogue sequences. Oh, okay, fine. We're very different readers.
Look at all this. Look at all that fucking Tolkien up there.
That's true. Yeah, you know what? There's just like, there's a certain kind of person that this question addresses, and I'm not that person. Let's see if there's any other questions here.
Lauren's
any
got
book
one.
recommendations? So Lauren has incredible reading taste, and like we swap books all the time. Actually, I have one of Lauren's recommendations. I think it's in one of my purses. It's the one about the School for the Deaf that you told me to get. Lauren, I can't remember what it's called now, but I'm going to read it, I promise. I just read the last, well, first of all, let me just say that Jen and I both have newsletters, and we write about what we read every week. And so mine is called Reading and Writing with Rebecca, because I am a creative wunderkind. And Jen's is called The Fast or No. And so you can find links to those in our bios, and then you can like always sort of get the skinny on what we're reading. I have been listening to a ton of historical romance as usual, because I'm crocheting a new sweater, and when I'm crocheting, I can't like read with my hands because they're busy. So I've just been like, you know, like just devouring like a ton of, I think I listened to 8 historical romances this week. And The Golden Enclaves, which is the last in the Scholomance Naomi
Which I just
series.
purchased yesterday.
I know, so I don't want to talk about it too much. Don't read my newsletter, Jen.
I did read it. I mean, you were pretty.
Oh, you did.
You were pretty.
It was very vague.
You were general about it, but I am in the middle of a new book by Alexandra Rowland called A Taste of Gold and Iron, which is, it's like a gay court fantasy with like political intrigue, where there's this prince who's got like this very intense panic disorder, and the sort of bodyguard who's sort of reluctantly assigned to him, who's like, why am I assigned to this wimp? And then he sort of learns that there's like hidden depths. It's exactly the kind of like sort of self-indulgent like nonsense that I just absolutely eat up like candy. It's a really fun read. I also have lined up the 3rd book in, I've been reading, I think I told you about these last time, the translations of the Chinese Xianxia novels, the like the one that the Untamed is based on.
Yeah, you bought one when you visited me, right?
Yeah, so they're now up to, they're publishing volume 4 right now of 2 of them, and I need to start reading volume 3 of both Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation and Heaven Official's Blessing. So I've got some
good. Let me know how those are.
Yeah.
Someone asked if my newsletter is on Substack. The answer is no. It's hosted on Review because it like easily ties into my Twitter. I don't know. I just kind of started the newsletter on a whim, and here we are, like 72 issues later.
I know. It's like, oh, I'm wedded to this now.
Yeah. Like, to this like non-monetized, completely like at my own whim. It's like this albatross that I like lovingly wear around my neck. Let's see. Oh, we're getting a few more questions in the last couple of minutes here. Let me see. Have we read any books from Marcus Zusak?
I have not.
Didn't he write the one where death is a POV? It's really sad. Really, really sad.
I try to avoid those.
Yeah, I remember sobbing uncontrollably on my couch while I was reading it. That was many years ago. Are there any genres you two are looking for in your editing these days? Yeah, you go first.
The only genre that I don't do a ton of is literary fiction. I have a little bit more experience in sci-fi and fantasy, in both adult and young adult. But I like all genres, so I'm pretty open.
I don't do sci-fi anymore, but I do fantasy. I don't do horror. I love romance of all kinds. I like general commercial adult fiction, and I also work with literary fiction, but I'm super choosy about it because a lot of literary fiction is super boring. So I have to really be impressed by the first 5 pages that I read in order to take on lit fic, because the last thing you want is to get like just like ankle deep in a boring book as an editor. It is a soul crusher. So, you know, I'm open to a lot. I don't work with middle grade. I do work with YA. You kind of just have to email us and see, you know. Mm-hmm.
We got another question.
Is it okay to start the first line with dialogue if it serves a purpose that introduces conflict? I hate starting with dialogue. I think it's just incredibly difficult to contextualize dialogue because you have to do so much heavy lifting in that first sentence to make dialogue meaningful.
Although the exception for me is the first line of Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers is damn, in quotation marks. It's also the last line of the series, but that's like a whole nother thing.
Look, if you're Dorothy Sayers, go ahead and do what you want, I think generally, like,
It's tricky.
it's very tricky. And so I think writing a book is hard enough already. Why make it harder? Dialogue can be line number 2. Just, it's just not for me. You can do it. I just don't recommend it.
I think we have one last question, and then we can...
Oh, how did we become editors? That's such a nice question. I have only ever wanted to be an editor in my entire life. When other little girls were dreaming of being prima ballerinas, I was hoarding red pens from Clover, which was like the Target of the late 80s and early 90s outside of Philadelphia, where I grew up. And my dad and my sister and I would go to Clover for random errands, and I would not be able to leave the store without a fresh pad of paper and a packet of red pens. And who only knows what I wrote, but this is from the time I was like super itty bitty. I have a great hero origin story where no one realized that I was legally blind when I was really small. So I spent like the first 5 years of my life just, I didn't know my mom had curly hair. I couldn't see the board. No one figured it out until I started learning to write and was writing everything phonetically because I couldn't see what was happening. So I was blind for a really long time. And then once they finally gave me glasses, they realized I didn't have a learning delay. I just was, unable to see anything. So then I started like devouring books, just like at an insane rate. And it was not long after that I was like, whatever I have to do to fix the books is the job I want. And I read my first arc when I was 9. It was a Tamora Pierce book from her Song of the Lioness quartet, and never looked back. That's my story. Nice. Jen?
Well, I was a literary agent for 10 years, and I got that job because my roommate's cousin's roommate needed an intern. That was
Your
Amy.
Cousin's roommate?
Yep.
Wow, okay.
And I was a literary agent for 10, 11 years, and then kind of burned out on agenting, and then I DM'd my good friend Rebecca over here and was like, how do you become a freelance editor? And she helped me get set up on Reedsy and everything.
On Reedsy, yeah. And then she was like, wow, people are here and they are writing all these books.
It's been really fun. I really like it. And, again, I am
a great editor, too.
I took a little hiatus and I wasn't available for a while, but I am open again for editing. And if you missed the middle of the program where I talked about the specials I'm running, you can get a $25 critique of your query in the first 10 pages if you contact me before October 10th, end of day on October 10th. And also if we end up booking a editorial session together, so something on the longer side, you have the option of adding on either a 30-minute coaching session or a critique of your query with that longer edit. So those are 2 things that you can do with me in October. But I am on Reedsy. If you just search Jennifer Udden Reedsy, I'll come up.
And remember, Reedsy is like paper reads, like REEDSY, not READSY. That kind of sums it up for us, right? Like I think that's kind of it.
I kind of want to keep talking, but
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm just gonna call you later. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I've been posting all of these First Line Frenzy reels. So if you're looking for a little daily dose of First Line Frenzy, you can follow me on Instagram and have your little 90-second fix almost every day. Honestly, I record as many as I can on days when my hair looks great, and then I just release them one at a time. So that's me. So you should probably see some more coming through the weekend, but I'll definitely be posting a lot next week too. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. We really appreciate you and you sharing your work with us. First Line Frenzy is designed to help all of us be better and get better at writing craft. And so I hope you found it useful. You can put any questions you have in the comments. Find Jen and me on Instagram or Twitter, though I'm barely on Twitter anymore because it's a hell site. And we hope to see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.